23 minutes now past 7 o'clock. It is March the 1st, and that means the start of Epilepsy Awareness Month in our country. But many people have to learn about it the hard way when somebody in their family develops the condition. And that was the case for Fawn Fritzen and Michael Pilo. Their 4-year-old daughter, Jade, started having seizures just after her second birthday, and they went through tough times before her epilepsy was brought under control. Here's their story.
My name is Fawn Fritzen. I am Jade's mom. Jade was born in January of 2006, and she had a great birth. She was totally normal, beautiful baby girl. Then one morning, a couple months after she turned 2, she suddenly started having seizures. We actually had her in bed with us and trying to lie there, catch a few more minutes of sleep, and she started twitching. I looked over at her, and I don't know, I'd never seen a seizure before, but I knew that's what was happening. I wasn't too panicked. I've taken some first aid before, and I'd heard that kids get seizures, and it's not always a big deal. But then when her lips started turning blue, I started to feel a little more panicked.
I'm Michael Pilo, and I'm Jade's father. We were in the hospital in Whitehorse for about 2 weeks, and her seizures were getting rapidly worse while we were here. We got a referral to BC Kids Hospital, and were flown down there where they began a lot of the diagnosis. They did some of the diagnostic work here, but really hadn't found anything. So we flew down there, and we did an MRI and spinal taps and blood work and all sorts of other different things. But again, they still found nothing, no cause. They called it idiopathic epilepsy. We were in and out of hospitals for about a month, and they were trying different medications, but none of the medications seemed to be working, and her seizures just kept getting worse and worse and worse. The seizures had started in May, and by the time we got to October, we knew that medications weren't working and that they weren't going to work. And so we started looking at other alternatives, and one of the alternatives was the ketogenic diet. By the time we got to October, she was having seizures every few seconds. Our kid wasn't our kid anymore. She was just a shell, pretty much, having seizures all the time. They have a ketogenic diet team at BC Kids, and we were referred to the keto program. The first part of the diet, we were supposed to fast her for a day, and even just during that day of fasting, we noticed an improvement in her seizures. And then we began the induction on the diet. The ketogenic diet is a very high-fat diet with adequate protein and very low carbohydrate. But it suppresses your appetite. It makes you not want to eat. So that first week, really that first month, was incredibly stressful. We didn't want her to starve, but at the same time, we didn't want to see the seizures either. But we did see improvements in that first month.
When we first heard about the ketogenic diet, everything we read said it was really hard to do. It was a last resort. You never want to do it unless you have no other choice. And I think that really does kids with epilepsy a disservice, because it's not as hard as a lot of those resources say they are. And it's not a last resort anymore. That attitude is changing. It's so much easier to follow a strict diet than it is to watch Jade having seizure after seizure. So last night for supper, for example, she had some pork tenderloin, she had some applesauce on the side, and then she had a little blob of coconut oil. And then we have a whole bunch of canola oil mixed into the applesauce, and that actually hides quite well in there. It's enough to keep her from being hungry, to keep her seizures controlled. And she went from saying 1 to 2 words to communicate with us, and when she was 2 years old, 2.5 years old, which is pretty severely language delayed. Recently we were able to have her tested, and she's in the normal range for 4-year-olds now. She's talking like a normal 4-year-old, and it's unbelievable to me that she could make these huge improvements. And we've been on the diet just a little bit over a year. She started in October 2008, so yeah, a little bit over a year, and it's made such a huge difference.
In the future, she'll be on this diet for at least another couple of years, and we'll continue monitoring her. Epilepsy is one of those things that people can have it and go about it with a completely normal life, and it hardly ever affects them. And then there are cases where it can become quite extreme and even life-threatening. And that's where Jade was going at one point. And now we've had a total turnaround where she's growing into, a normal kid who's just has one slight little challenge that she's overcoming very, very well.
And thanks to Fawn Fritzen and Michael Pilo for sharing their story. They were speaking with CBC reporter Dave Croft. And so it's a good news story to hear about how Jade is progressing. And again, this marks Epilepsy Awareness Month across the country.